welcome my first guest, all the way from Birmingham, England. As I said, he works in the media industry. And just to give you a bit of background, the reason why I invited him on the show, because I was on Facebook and I seen him make a comment about, has anyone like followed this kind of Rupert Murdoch stuff and the closing of News of the World? Anyone followed it? Yeah? And I seen him make a comment and I thought, you know what, because he actually works in the media, I think it'd be good to actually get someone that works in that industry, yeah? And get his viewpoints on how he feels about the media and what better choices can we make to safeguard ourselves from the media presently, yeah? So if you can, feel very warm and welcome. Everyone get their hands ready. Yeah. Come on, more warm. Mr. Veron Graham. Come on, woo! Welcome, sir. How you doing? Was that a good introduction?
Yeah, good enough.
Good enough. Okay. Well, take a seat in my hot seat there. Oh gosh. So how you doing? I'll just give you a little mic here. It should be on. Just one press of this button. There you go. You come on the truth show, you know. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You have on your vest?
Yes.
Because I'm going to ask some serious questions, you know.
Do so, please.
Okay. First question. How much girlfriend you have in your history of your life? Only joking. You did read the small print in the contract, didn't it, before coming on the show? Did call true show?
Yes, but I didn't see that.
Oh, you didn't see that part?
No.
Okay, no problem. I'll let you off for now.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that all right? Yeah, but I've got a few questions to ask you. Just tell us a bit about you. Who are you? I read your bio. You grew up in Smethwick, Winson Green, I believe. Just tell us who you are and what you're currently doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, my name is Veron Graham. I've been called worse, having spent nearly 20 years in the media. I grew up in Smethwick. I'll say the first 5 years of my life I spent in Smethwick. Moved to Willie Castle when I was 6 years old. After that, moved to Winson Green and I was about 7 or 8, and spent the majority of my time growing up in Handsworth, Newtown, and Winson Green. Had an interest in journalism from a very, very early age. Apparently, when I was a toddler, I used to get bits of paper and scribble them up into bits and scribble on them and hand them out to all members of my family. So I was broadcasting and distributing, publishing back then as well. But it didn't really kick in until I was about 16, when I really thought I could really make a go of it. But it was difficult to begin with. But I eventually started to make serious inroads into the media at the age of sort of 19, 20.
So kind of, what led you to basically go into the career of media? It's a bit of a, was there something in your life that sparked you and said, you know what, yeah, I think I want to go into this?
I think as a Christian, I believe the gift comes without repentance. Before you even become a Christian, we're all born with gifts, whatever persuasion of faith we have or of no faith. And I believe it was just a matter of me becoming a Christian and realising that this is where I felt God calling me to be.
Okay. You believed it was your purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was reading your bio, and as I alluded to earlier, you've worked with some kind of well-known establishments, the BBC, in radio and TV.
Mm-hmm.
You've also worked for previously called Evening Mail, now called the Birmingham Mail.
Yes.
And also the Voice newspaper,
mm-hmm.
which is a black publication. But one of the things that was, how was that experience anyway, working for those kind of companies?
Well, they're all different. I mean, working with The Voice, it's my people, so it was a different kind of vibe from when you're working in a mainstream place like the BBC, where they have lots of stereotypes of young men who grow up in Smethwick and Handsworth and Winson Green, expect to come with a certain level of baggage or attitude or lack of...
What kind of attitudes? Be more specific.
Well, in
what
the
are
sense,
the stereotypes in the media?
That if there was a gang incident, a shooting, that I would actually know who did it or who got shot. I had numbers for the burger bars and the joints, I had them on speed dial, all them sort of things.
That's what they thought, that because you was black?
Yeah, when the girls got shot, sadly, in Aston, I was actually on holiday with my wife and her cousin, and I got calls from my colleagues at the BBC saying, you know, there's a shooting that happened. Do you know who did it? I'm like, no. Why would I? And actually, when I got back to work, I was asked to camp out in Aston and Newtown and just to talk to people and find out what they knew, you know, with my big BBC badge on and a big microphone. I said, I'm not going to do that. I want to write the news, not be the news. I'm not going to be doing them sort of stupid things. So it was that kind of thing where they thought that you didn't understand what they were asking me to do.
Okay.
And there were a few challenges while I was there.
Did you feel like, you know, disrespected? You know?
Yes, I did. Because I think there was a genuine attempt by some of the people there at the BBC to try to understand the black community, but there was also this reticence or reluctance to want to really hear what I was saying. For example, I put together a story on patois and the fact that, you know, for many of us, and many particularly with our parents and grandparents, that's how they speak. And it's not really for it to be disrespected or to be looked at as a slang or them sort of things. And I had a real argument with one of the reporters there. He wanted to say that because of slavery, we got patois. So slavery was a good thing because out of it, we got patois. I said, that's back to front.
That's madness.
That's back. And she could not understand what I was talking about. We had another situation where we had Viv Richards, a cricket legend, come to open a radio station about 9 years ago. And they wanted me to get him to get empty tins of baked beans and knock together the cricket tune, you know, dip, 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 dip. Ask this legendary cricketer to do that in front of... I said, you ask him.
Really?
Really.
Disrespect.
Disrespect.
Audience, just said disrespect.
Disrespect.
What do you mean? Whoever's on lighting, can we have the lightings on here? It feels a bit dark up here, please. Thank you. Just a short advert break. Coming back to you. One of the things that I want to kind of get out of having you on the show is what people call in mainstream is the tabloid media, yeah? Mm-hmm. And when I was reading your bio, you said, without no apologies, that you refused to work with some of the tabloid newspapers. Is that true?
That's correct. I was, how old was I? I was 20 at the time. And I was working for a group which will remain nameless, but essentially what they did was they were based in Birmingham, and all of the local stories that you saw in the main tabloid newspapers, the Sun, the Mirror, the Star, and those sort of red top papers as they call them, and that came from the Midlands area. It was produced by organisations like this one. They also did things for women's magazines and things. So there's a variety of things that they did, and I was doing work experience there. It was very difficult to get a place there because it was a very well-known place, and I managed to get a week working there.
Okay.
After 2 days, I had nothing to do. I was just sitting there doing crosswords and looking around, trying to find something to get into. And I went in the Wednesday morning thinking, if I don't have to get to do anything, I might as well just go home because I'm wasting my time here. About midday, the editor came over to me with a post-it note on his finger, and he said to me, "We've had rumours that a teacher in the local area is having a married teacher is having an affair with the mother of one of his pupils. One of the tabloids are interested in that story, so wanted to go out to the neighbourhood, mm-hmm. Hang out there, talk to some people, go through some bins, and just trying to find out what's going on."
Is that stuff real? Like they'll tell you to actually go through bins?
It's real. It's real. And I sat there thinking, I'm in a prestigious organisation, and they've given me something to do. They trusted me with this thing, but I had a problem with what they trusted me to do. Now, I went there to gain experience on how this system, how this industry works, and that's what I was offered. And it seemed like I was there for an hour just pondering it in my mind, but it was only a couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. And I went back to the editor's desk and I knocked on his door and I went in and I said, "Sir," with my little nervous self, that I don't really want to do this. This is not what I got into media for. I don't really want to be part of this kind of story. It's only going to cause harm and hurt. And he said to me that this is the bread and butter of this is journalism. This is real journalism. If you're going to make it in the industry, this is what you've got to do. I said, I don't want to make it in the industry that does this kind of stuff. To me, he says, "You've got no future in journalism. You best just go."
And that was it.
That was it. As I was walking out the door, wondering what have I just done, The next young guy who was there had a grin on his face, and he was called into the office. So me and him crossed paths as I was walking out the place. About 2 weeks later, the story came out, and somebody wasn't happy about it. They took a package into that building, which was down at Bartholomew Street, just by Digbeth, not far from Millennium Point, and put the package into the building. Now, it was on lunch hour, and because it was an agency whereby it's not so much manning phones, it was just researching, everyone had gone out of the office, and that package blew out the side of the building.
Wow.
If you go to Bartholomew Street now, you'll see that the area that's gore-greened over.
So
grass.
Let me get what you're saying right. The guy done the story. A few weeks later, he went out. A package came to that guy's desk, and it blew up.
It blew out the side of the building. There is no building down there now. That building that the agency was in is not there anymore. And every time I go past there, it reminds me of what I did and what I didn't do.
Wow.
Now, people could have been killed. Anything could have happened. We all know what damage explosives can do. And it's all, every time I go past, I remember the step that I took, and it almost encourages me of something that I did many years ago that made the right choice.
It's quite powerful. I think you deserve a round of applause for that, because I'm actually here thinking, if you didn't make that decision or say what you said to the boss, maybe you would have been at that desk and not here to share the story. Is that real?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But on top of that, it's what we can't measure is the damage that story must have done to the children.
Family, yeah.
Whether the story was true or not. But even if it was true, do we need to read about that? Somebody to take those people aside and say, look, man, you need to fix up. That's not something to be put out in newspapers. For where I'm coming from.
As gossip. Okay, thanks for that. How do you feel about, the kind of my heart behind this show? What's your heart in terms of how you've seen media change, and is it just an illusion that I'm thinking and some of us are thinking, or has media really gone down the pan?
Media has gone down the pan, and when I talk about that, I talk about the kind of media that's pushed in front of us. So the mainstream, there's good media out there, there's good newspapers, there's good news programs, there's good radio, there's good magazines, there's also rubbish. But what's pushed in front of us is stuff that is typically not good. It's slack, it's full of gossip and trivialization, things that we don't really need to be reading about and watching and listening to.
So like I'm trying to make it make sense, like obviously the media has gone crazy over the last few months with this revelation about phone hacking and the kind of crazy lengths that journalists go to obtain information or even fabricate stories. Because me myself, I was watching a show, I think it was called A Big Question, on a Sunday, and a journalist who he's similar kind of position like yourself, he was actually working for a tabloid newspaper, and he made a decision to walk away because there were some days he was just told to make up a story about Muslims and to say anything bad about them and just put it in the paper, and actually the whole nation would believe whatever story they put in there, and he would actually concoct the story in his head, put it in the paper, and then the whole nation who read the paper would believe it. Talk about the whole this scandal, and what does it mean for us just on living our everyday life?
I mean, first of all, I'm sure you're all aware of the sort of the phone hacking situation. Basically, a young girl went missing 9 years ago, Millie Dowler. She turned up dead, some while later. But prior to the time before her body was found, it's been proved that certain journalists from the News of the World had hacked her phone to try to find out more information as to where she was and what had happened to her. That came to light just a couple of months ago, and that is what's kicked off this whole look at the way the News of the World is operated. But that is not new, and this goes back to 2007.
Yeah.
The former royal editor of the News of the World actually was jailed for 4 months.
Okay.
Because it was found that he'd hacked some phones, and the then editor of the News of the World resigned. He didn't admit any guilt, but he said, "This happened on my watch. This is a wrong thing, and so I'm going to step down." within 4 months he was taken on by David Cameron, who was then the leader of the opposition, because Gordon Brown was the Prime Minister at the time, and taken on as David Cameron's head of communications. So this is nothing new, just the revelation that it was a murder victim whose phone got hacked, I think is what's kicked it over the edge and made it such a big story.
So can we trust media, or, you know, what do you think? What's the message that we can give to the people that hear about they buy newspapers, they look in the papers and listen to the news? Can we trust the media that's out there?
I think you have to break the media down. Like I said earlier on, there's good media and there's bad. I think the question you have to ask is, when you watch something, listen to something, read something, is think, how did this thing come together? Does this media that I'm consuming, does it have the potential to hurt or to damage? Because what you got to realise is that, okay, we may not be the ones running down people to take photographs or snooping on them, but if we're people who are buying these newspapers, we're keeping this industry alive. Okay, I said this when Princess Diana was killed. I wouldn't say in an accident, because she was killed. And everybody who bought the magazines that printed the pictures of her and read the articles that were written about her have a part to play in that, because quite frankly, you're keeping that industry going by continuing to buy those publications that encourage the journalists to write and to take these pictures. If there's no one going to buy these magazines and papers, they will not put this stuff out.
Wow. We're going to open it up with you guys and your questions, and I hope you are sending questions through. Well, I want to ask one more question before I take some of the questions from the audience. The question just flown straight out of my head.
It happens. It's happened to me live on radio, so don't worry about it. It'll come back to you.
The question was, how powerful would you say are newspapers in terms of shaping our minds and our decisions that we make every single day?
Newspapers are powerful, not as powerful as they once were, because the internet has sort of knocked radio to newspapers to one side, because, you know, internet it's international. You can't stop it. The problems with Facebook has, you know, come to light recently with, you know, court cases and things of that nature. But newspapers are very powerful, because the written word is an important thing. You can take that thing anywhere. Once it's been printed and sent out, it cannot be recovered.
Wow.
Very, very powerful.
Thank you. Questions?
Okay, the first question that came through was, do we have any reputable black newspapers that tell the truth?
It's hard to say. I wouldn't like to stand as a spokesperson for black newspapers or any newspaper, quite frankly. I had some personal issues with the black newspaper I was working with, and I decided to step away. Whether they're still operating in the way they were in the 4 years that I left, I can't really be sure. But to answer your question, I think, going back to what I said earlier on, if you're reading something and looking at it as a newspaper, is this thing, as black people, as most of us are in here, or whatever colour or background you're from, if this thing is bigging up my people, then I'll support it. If it's tearing my people down, if it's exploiting my people, you have to look at it and say, nah, I'm not going to be part of this. Because newspapers, like everything, changes, and what may start as being a well-meaning, educational, you know, uplifting publication, when people see the figures, the sales figures aren't as high as they once were, people will switch and they'll go negative if they think that's going to bring the money in. So we have to continue to analyse what it is we're taking on board.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah. The second one, from a person who's interested in broadcast journalism. Do you have any advice on how to break into this industry?
I think it depends whether you're talking about television or radio, because that's the two areas of broadcasting. To answer on behalf of both, if you're talking about television, it's very, very difficult to get in, because although there are so many channels now, the market is broken down quite a lot. So it's very difficult to get in, and people really want to see your work in action before they consider paying you to do it. So whether it's television or radio, I think what you need to do is get out there and just be seen, be heard, report, you know, interview, get yourself on YouTube, which wasn't there when I was growing up, but you know, make use of these channels, but also ensure what you're doing is of quality. What you need to do is prove to editors and would-be employers that you can do the job for free, and you'll do it for free. So let them see quality stuff, make copies of all the things that you report and that you work on, so you can actually present those things in a professional way and show yourself to be a quality, principled, resourceful journalist.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I've just got 2 more questions. Does your Christian walk often affect your work, as at this stage in your life, work-based? On your story, start again. Does your Christian walk often affect your work at this stage in your life?
Can we have the other question as well together, please?
It's a completely different question.
Yeah, we just catch them off then.
Have you been approached by the Illuminati or Freemasons, and if not, what are their involvement and power in the media?
Okay, we have that question.
Separate question.
Can we have the question? Do you have a question again?
The first question again. The first question is, does your Christian walk often affect your work at this stage in your life?
He's thinking about the other question.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking about at this stage in your life. Well, look, all of a sudden, because it just sounds like an all-man question. No, I mean, it doesn't so much now, and that's because when I was younger, it did. Because I worked for publications, secular ones. Not saying working for secular publications is wrong, but the kind of stories I was presented were things that didn't sit right with my faith. For example, I was asked to go report on seances, things that I don't, obviously I know are dangerous as a Christian to be involved in. I was asked to write on other faiths which I don't believe are correct and are true, and I had to make conscious decisions to step away from those things. I remember there was a period where I couldn't find a job in media, and I was asked to come to do an interview with a lady who I knew in the community from other work that I'd done, and I went in. I was half prepared, and then when I sat down and I said, "So, I'm here, but what is the publication?" And she said, "It's the Sikh Times." I said, "Sikh Times? Is that the religion Sikh is, She said, "No, it's an area of India." And I said, "No, to me, Sikh, that's a religion, isn't it?" She said, "No, it's not." And there was something that came over me, and I couldn't understand a word she was saying after that point. I said, "I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't have anything against Sikhism or Sikh people, but for me, as a Christian person, as a journalist, I can't be working on this newspaper, so thank you for the appointment, the interview, but I got to step away."
Wow.
And I thought that was a stupid thing to do at the time, because you need to get paid, you need to earn. But I said, that's not the way I want to earn. So earlier on in my career, yes it did, but so much now, because I can pick and choose. When you've been around for a little bit, you're able to pick and choose what you do.
Can you answer the next question, please?
Remind me, it's called thinking time. It's an old media trick.
Repeat the question, please.
Okay, bear with me.
Basically,
Have you...
go on. Basically,
Thank you. Have you been approached by the Illuminati or Freemasons, and if not, what are their involvement in the power the media has?
before you answer that question, turn off that camera, Reggie.
I mean, as a journalist, you know that, particularly with YouTube and everyone's got cameras on their phones. Like all of us are journalists. Any of us could be, recorded and filmed and stuff put all over the place. So you got to always be wary of what you're saying. So keep it running if you will. It's not a problem. I haven't been approached by the Illuminati or anyone I presume to be from the Illuminati, and there is hidden power behind, all media and people from the Illuminati. From what I know, I'm not an expert, but they wield power in every area of life. And
What does that mean? Break it down.
well, for example, people talk about music, and I'm going to talk about music later on, but there's influence there. They're pulling the strings behind the scenes, appearing to be doing well, doing good things, but there's an agenda behind that. And I think, I can't document particularly where they are in the media, but I'm sure they're there. But the Bible says, by a person's fruits you shall know them. What they produce, you shall understand what they're about. And if there are people of dubious influence in any area of life, you got to assess what it is they're producing. Because if they're producing something that is representative of God, of goodness, it will show. If it's slanderous, if it's exploitative, if it's slackness, what will happen is that will reflect where they're coming from. So obviously, as said earlier on, assess what you're taking on board.
Wow, thank you. Any other questions from the Texas? Thank you very much. As we're closing and coming to conclude this interview, what points, recommendations, would you just give to our audience and those who will watch on the internet about the media or decisions and choices that they make from your perspective?
Sound like a track record, but yes, assess what you're watching, what you're listening to, what you're reading. Is it edifying to you? Is it teaching you something worthwhile? Do the people who are featured in these media outlets and these media products, are they being exploited? If they are, make a decision as to whether you're going to take that on board or whether you're going to refuse it. Because the reason the News of the World has been so successful over the years is because people looked at the stuff, go, some of that isn't right, some of that is negative, but I'll buy it anyway and I'll read it anyway.
Is it true because we like gossip?
Sorry?
Is it because of the gossip nature of News of the World?
Yes. I think humans, we like to hear news and tittle-tattle and slackness, quite sadly. And we shouldn't allow that influence to influence the kind of things we're taking on board. So assess what you're looking at, assess what you're listening to, assess what you're reading. If it's negativity, turn it away, because it could be someone else one day, they could be reporting about us the next day. So be aware of what you're taking on board. That's the number one advice I can give to anybody, because it's the advice that I take on board myself.
Thank you very much. You're going to join us back for the panel discussion when we have the open roving mics. So you have a chance to contribute to the show in a bit. I'd just like to say thank you, and if you, audience, would please help me to just thank Vernon for your time. And we wish you all the best in your career in media. And we say thank you very much for your insight and your wisdom. Thank you. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, Veron Graham. Thank you. The appear good because I mash up with my head. Okay. So I'll give you one more round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.